Om Nama Sreshtham Manumapi Shachi Putram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Mathurim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Mahoradhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Prasita Kripaya Sri Gurum Tannatosmi Nindantang Pulakotkarena Vikasat Nipa Prasuna Chavin Pradhi Kritya Bujadvayam Hari Hari Tyuchair Vadantam Muhu Nrityantam Drutamasrunir Jarachayai Sinchantamurvitalam Gayantam Nijaparshadaih Parivritam Tam Gorameva Stumaha Alibhik Paripalita Pravalita Sanandamalokita Pratyasam Sumanah Falodaya Vidho Samodamamodita Vrindaranya Bhuvi Sarasa Madhura Sarvati Sriya Radha Madhavayo Pramodayatu Mam Ulala Sakalpa Drumaha Jai Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Echai Gosai Rakuri Charana Vandam Jaha Hoite Vignanash Avishta Puran Jai Jai Sri Radhe Jai Jai Sri Radhe Jai Jai Sri Radhe Shyam. So we're in the fifth Anucheda. We have two more sections to go. And it's this one here is called Is Union of the Individual Soul with the Supreme Soul the Paramartha? Now, this section has been a little bit difficult in a sense because there's a bit of a trying to understand what exactly Jiva Goswami is getting at here. What is the purpose of his citing these verses? Well, first of all, as I stated in the last lecture, there is a distinction, there's a difference between what he has to say and what Sridhar Swami says. So Sridhar Swami is not quite as dependable in terms of getting the verses correct, instead of in terms of, analyzing and being able to sort out the meaning of difficult verses. He's very helpful, let's put it that way. But at the same time, he's not always consistent in his theism or not always consistent in his support of bhakti. And it's often the case with Gyanis like Madhusudan Saraswati. You get that same impression that he's going from one to the other, that bhakti, whether is bhakti predominant or is jnana predominant. So here in this particular case, as Jiva Goswami himself said, it's a jnana prakaranam, which means that the subject here is jnana, and so we don't necessarily expect bhakti to be glorified. Nevertheless, if bhakti is not being glorified, then what's the point? Well, Jiva Goswami, his point is that Brahman, Paramatman, and Bhagavan, that all these three are different aspects of the same non-dual reality. So he's talking about, so these verses are discussing the ultimate goal, the Paramartha, which is what Jiva's subject is here. The Paramartha, Purushartha, and Prayojan Tattva, these things are really all synonymous. So now this is a discussion of the Paramartha. So in one sense, Jiva Goswami has to take it seriously because it's in the Vishnu Purana, which is one of our major authorities. As I was pointing out to one of the devotees here the other day, that in actual fact, the Vishnu Purana, at least in, despite the Vishnu Purana's title as a Purana dedicated to Vishnu, it is decidedly oriented towards jnana. And but nevertheless, there are a few very important verses from the Vishnu Purana that are almost central to Jiva Goswami's doctrine. And indeed, here in this Vishnu Purana, in this Priti Sandarbha, we'll see in section 61, which is the all-important Anuched, where the term Priti is being defined. Like, what is love? This is Jiva Goswami will give his verdict on the basis of a verse spoken by Prahlad in the first Angsha of the Vishnu Purana. So the Vishnu Purana does play a significant role in the study of Vaishnavism, and Jiva Goswami has taken some significant portions from the Vishnu Purana in order to establish his doctrines. So in particular, Prayojan, so the Purushartha or the Paramartha is the subject of the Priti Sandarbha. And so he's setting up the hierarchy of goals in order to establish that love of Krishna, love of Bhagavan, is and direct perception of Bhagavan through love is the ultimate achievement for humanity. So now, in this particular case, we've gone through now 3 different Purva Pakshas, and each one has been eliminated by Jora Bharat. And each of these cases, the interpretation given by Sridhar from the Jnana point of view and Jiva Goswami from the Bhakti point of view have been different. But now we're coming to a difficult verse. Now this is for me is the one that was difficult, and the reason for that is that, well, it appears that he's talking about Bhakti. And so he's going to take, these are the 4 Purva Pakshas, and then the 5th is going to be the Uttara Paksha. So what's going to happen is that Jora Bharat is going to give his verdict on what is the Paramartha. So when he speaks about the Paramartha, then he's taking Brahma Sakshatkar, or the attainment of Brahman, as being that achievement. So that seems odd. So from the point of view of the Brahmavadis, the soul, the individual soul, and the union of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul, which is how we would describe yoga, and which is how we would describe our goal in devotional service and in Krishna Bhakti, as being the ultimate goal. So now this verse is going to say something that sounds quite contrary to that. So let's see what Jiva Goswami, how he introduces the verse. So, Nanu Jivatma Paramatmanor Ekatra Stiti Bhavanaya Atyanta Sangyoge Pradurbhute Sati tasyapi sarvatmata syat tad abhedapatte. All right, so if you remember back to the previous verse, where there it was the problem was Vedakari, and Paramarthas Nabhedavan. So the Paramarthas tu Nabhedavan. You can't have divisions. So there the divisions were given twofold. In Sridhar's version, it was Purush and Prakriti. And in Jiva's version, it was the individual soul and the supreme soul. So that was a bit of a distinction in the way that the subject was approached, that you can't have a division between the individual and the supreme soul. In the sense, what happens is that because the jiva is a portion of the, I got to make sure I'm not confusing the two commentaries here. Well, yes, okay. So it was the previous verse. It was the previous verse. It was saying that the jiva is a part of the jiva shakti, and that because he's a part of the jiva shakti, to know the jiva alone is always going to be separate from the supreme truth. The jiva by himself is not. It's not the same as taking a drop of the ocean and being able to understand the whole ocean by taking the drop. One can get some inclination or some indication of the characteristics of the Supreme through understanding individual consciousness and individual being and individual ananda. There are some, because by understanding the reflection, one can get some understanding of by looking at the sun in a mirror, one can get some understanding of what the sun is, let's put it that way. But simply to have the soul, to have concentration, or to be situated in one's swarupa, without reference to Bhagavan, that would be an incomplete understanding of the truth. So it's not the ultimate goal. So now here the thing is here. So what he does here is going to say Nanu, presenting a new alternative. The Jivatma Paramatma nor ekatra stiti bhavanaya. So by imagining or by thinking, bhavana means meditation or thinking. So by thinking of the individual soul and the supreme soul as being situated in the same place, ekatra stiti, that they're atyanta sangyoge pradurbhute, when they're atyanta. So atyanta would mean absolute. When their absolute samyoga, union, is achieved or is manifested, pradurbhute, then the individual jiva also becomes sarvatmata, also attains to universal selfhood, right? So the problem in the previous verse, yasmin vigyate sarvamevam vigyatum bhavati, that by knowing which one will know all things. So that was Jiva Goswami's objection, and now he's saying that objection is going to be solved by thinking of the union of the individual soul with the supreme soul. So, because at that point they will be non-different from each other. Tad abhedapatehi. Such a yoga, not vinashwara, and this union, this yoga, would be unbroken. It would be imperishable. So remember back to the first one, our problem is that its perishability is the first defect that we want to eliminate from the ultimate goal. Because it's not imperishable, it's imperishable because it Jnanantara siddhatvat, because it continues to exist even after the attainment of knowledge or the attainment of liberation. So tasmat toyor yoga eva paramartho bhavatu. So let the two of them, let this union be the supreme goal. So abed, there's no distinctions have been made, and imperishability has been given. So the problems that were in the previous that were, for the reasons that the previous Purusharthas were rejected, are not present in this particular one. So then the verse. Excuse me. So tasmat tayo yogeva paramarto bhavatu tatroktam ekena. So he says it in one verse. I'll read the translation. So let us then consider the following. By meditating on the Jiva and the Paramatma being situated in the same place. So this is the thing. But what is this being situated in the same place? Well, first of all, the Atma and the Paramatma are always together. We know this from the verse which says that two birds are situated in the same tree, or from the Bhagavad Gita where it says kshetra kshetragyayor jnanam, that there's a kshetra and there's a kshetragyam chapi mangviti sarva kshetreshu bharata. So there's, I am also the kshetragya, I'm also the knower of the field, but I'm situated in all the fields. So the distinction of individual and Paramatma, the individual Atma, the Jiva Atma, and the Paramatma is stated very clearly there in the beginning of the 13th chapter, even though Shankaracharya argues that that's not the case. This is, but in the Paramatma Sandarbha, these verses from the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita have been very elaborately discussed by Jiva Goswami, and he takes on Shankaracharya's point of view and refutes it. So so by meditating on the Jiva and the Paramatma being situated in the same place, ekatra sthiti, an absolute union, atyanta sangyoga, between the two manifests. As a result, the Jiva would also become the self of all, sarvatmata syat, due to its having become non-different from the Paramatma, tad abhedapatte. Such a union, yoga, would be imperishable since it is achieved after attaining knowledge. So let the union of these two be taken as the ultimate goal. So Jara Bharata responds to this proposal in one verse. So let's see what he says in the verse. Paramatmatmanor yoga paramartha iti shyate mithyaitad anyad dravyam hi naiti tad dravyatang yatah. So we have very good Nyaya language here. We've been seeing that Nyaya language before also. But let's see how it goes. This verse has been, in the commentary, Jiva Goswami will say, like, Paramatmatmanor yoga. So the union. So here yoga, the word yoga is the union of the individual soul and the Paramatma. Paramartha iti. That this is the Paramartha. Right? Ishyate, so ishyate is passive present singular of ish dhatu, which means to desire. So it is desired. So if it is desired that this be the case, well, mityaitad iti mityaitad ishyate. So this is it's not really a problem, but the commentaries say that ishyate should come after mityaitad. But anyway, mithya means false. So he says this too is false. And why? Well, the reason is anyad dravyang hi naiti tad dravyatang yataha. So yataha is because. So because one thing, anyad dravyam, another thing, cannot attain that thingness or that substanceness. If you think that the union of the Atma with the Paramatma is the ultimate goal, then this too is false, because certainly one different substance never becomes another. It's a little difficult here because the grammar, the Sanskrit allows for that other. Anyad dravyam, one thing, another thing, does not become that thingness. One substance does not become another substance. That's what he's saying. So this is from the Nyaya philosophy. The Nyaya philosophy denies the ability of one thing to become another. And so here, what's interesting here now, from our point of view, is that I think this is probably one of the reasons that Jiva Goswami has hung on to this particular and section of the Vishnu Puranas, because this idea that the individual soul is one dravya, is one substance, and the supreme Paramatma is another substance. So he's saying that substantially the two are different. So it's a bheda. So we had in the previous verse, it was said that the bhedavan, that idea of that the truth can't be separateness. But here, separateness is being given as the characteristic difference between the Jivatma and the Paramatma. So we'll look at first of all at how Sridhar Swami deals with it. So he says, because Sridhar Swami is going to take the Advaita position. So Jiva Paramatman or Aikyopasanaya. So there was what was the word from that from the verse was the verse was just Paramatman or Yoga. Okay, so here in Jiva Goswami had Ekatra Sthiti Bhavanaya. Right, that was what he said. How does this work? How does this yoga of the individual soul and the supreme soul? How does that take place? So Jiva Goswami says, by ekatra sthiti bhavanaya, by constantly thinking of the two of them as being together, that they become atyanta samyoga, that there is a connection, an absolute connection that is created between the two of them. So here, but Sridhar Swami says that the process is, look, Aikyopasanaya tadatmya lakshano yoga. So the yoga is tadatmya lakshana. So remember the word tadatmya. So tadatmya means for something to become something else. So now this is Nyaya language. The word tadatmya comes up in Nyaya because the anya dravyam hi tad dravyatam naiti naiti tad dravyatam yataha. That this attaining of one substance cannot become another substance, and so he's going to give the argument there, right, in a moment. But tadatmya, like the iron rod in the fire, it can gain some of the properties. So in Jiva Goswami's point, he said that sarvatmata, he was proposing that by the two of them becoming one, the individual jiva attains that characteristic of the Paramatma of Sarvatmata. I will become the soul of all things by becoming one with the Supreme Soul. So that sounds like Brahma realization, according to Jiva Goswami, what he's describing. It sounds like the Brahma realization of the Advaitavadis. But how is the Advaitavadi going to deal with this verse? So he says, Aikyopasanaya, by worshipping or through the process or through a culture of identification, aikya, of oneness, with the, seeing the jiva and the paramatma as one. Well, seeing the jiva and paramatma as one. Then what happens is that the two of them become tadatmya, that the jiva takes on the characteristics of the paramatma. So if one thinks that this is the paramartha, well, that also is to be taken as false. This is what Sridhar is saying. Jiva paramatmanor aikyopasanaya tadatmya lakshano yoga paramartha iti etadapi matam mitya aiva. This is also false. So, and tatahi tayor bhinnayor abhinyayor va yoga ksyat. So now Sridhar is asking the question, well, are they different or are they not different? Right? So you can think of them or worship them as or identify them as being one, but are they different or not different? Bhinnayor abhinnayor va. So he's going to take ask about this question in response to the proposal that the Jiva and the Paramatma are one. So you're thinking of them as one. Then do they actually become one? Are they actually different from each other or are they the same? This is the question that Sridhar asks. So he says, Bhinnatve, if they're different, well then gavashvayor avaikya sambhava. So if they're different, like a horse and a cow, then they can never be one. They can never be. They can never be absolutely one. They can never be the same. You can't make a cow out of a horse or a horse out of a cow. So even if they somehow or another were to change form, it's still the horse and the cow are two different things. So that was that anyad dravyam hi naiti tad dravyatan yataha. So one different thing cannot become another. So that's the first possibility, that if there are two different things, then they can't become the same thing. There. So the Jivatma cannot become the Paramatma. In other words, the second one, it says, well, what if they are abhinna? What if they're somehow or another ontologically non-different from each other? And that this ontological difference, or this apparent ontological difference, is simply an illusion. Abhinnatvecha bimba pratibimbayoriva. So he uses the example of an object and its reflection. Right? So the sun and the reflection of the sun in water or in a mirror, that those two things, there's only the existence of the sun, and the reflection is actually not a reality. So by eliminating the upadi of the water or the mirror, then the reflection is disappears, and we are left only with the sun. Yeah. So he says that so upadi vyudasa matrang vina yoga shabdartho nasti iti. So what Sridhar is saying here is that the what happens, that the word yoga here doesn't mean anything other than the removal of this upadi, of the that which is separating the two or making one. Right? There's no difference between the two. So the word yoga is only being used to indicate the removal of a point of ignorance or a point of avidya. So in other words, in other words, there's either the point is either that if you think of them, if the two of them are actually different things, well then they can never become one. If, however, they are one from the beginning, well, then that's something different. That's not what's being spoken of here. Because what's being spoken of here is about the idea of them being one. So the idea of one thing not becoming another, that doesn't apply. And then we go on to the next point. Right? So which is going to express something more along the lines of the Advaitavad. All right, so how does Jiva Goswami deal with this? So he says, Etat paramartha twang mityaiveshyate iti arthaha. So the idea, that word ishyate, I should probably give that another look here. That the word ish usually means to desire. But let's just see what it has here. Let's just look at... right, ish. Yeah, to announce or proclaim. So the word ish can be used to mean announce or proclaim. It's ish eshati, and there's another ish with ichati, so that's something different. So ishyate can mean to announce or to proclaim. So it's the idea. So this is proclaimed to be false. So rather than saying that if you proclaim this to be, it's just a question of whether one associates that verb with what word. It doesn't really make that much difference, but the point that he's saying is that if you say this, that's what's false. It's a false thing, and rather than saying that it is false to say that, in actual fact, it's the thing itself that's false. It's unnis bis. It's not a big difference. Then he means certainty. So the idea is the certainty. So now we have a bit of a complicated sentence here. Yato yasmat. So the word yataha came in the verse as the last word, but the last word of the verse, we push it up a little bit, So but the because, we don't need to have it in Sanskrit word order, is a little bit more flexible. But the idea is that because, why is it false? Because, certainly because, one thing, yasmat, so yasmat means because, jiva lakshanam anyad dravyam, so one particular substance, namely the jiva, tad dravyatam, the Paramatma lakshana dravyatam, the substance known as the Paramatma, nayati, does not go, it doesn't become. The jiva cannot become the Paramatma. Tasmat mahatejah pravishtaha swalpa tejovat atyanta sangyogato pi abhed anupapattehe tayor yogopi na paramartha iti bhava. Therefore, just like a small light entering into a larger light, that it even if that there are completely merged into one another, they do not become absolutely one. So therefore, their union cannot be the supreme goal or the ultimate goal. Atava, or alternatively, so now just has Sridhar had two things. One was Binnayora Binnayana. So now he says, so if this one is this, so now if you say Atava Atra Yoga Shabdena Aikatvam Evochyate, so if you suggest that the word yoga here means complete union, not just association. So Sangyoga, these are words, the word Sangha, because Nyaya doesn't accept that one thing can become another, right? You have the Padarthas in Nyaya, and Sangyoga or Samavaya, inherence. These are different categories within the Nyaya philosophy. And so they don't accept that one thing can absolutely become another, and that's because logic will not accept it. But anyway, here he's saying that if you take the word yoga to mean oneness, ekatva, then one can interpret the verse according to that. But even then, the rest of it will remain the same. In other words, that one thing still does not become another, even if you claim that they are one. So the meaning that it is certainly false. The meaning is that it is certainly false to call such a union the supreme goal. He means certainly, because one substance, that is the living entity, cannot become another different substance, in other words, the Paramatma. Therefore, absolute unity is not attained, just as even complete direct conjunction, or atyanta sangyoga, so the translating here, sangyoga is conjunction, the two are being brought together, of a small light with a big one, by putting the former within the latter, does not make them absolutely one. And so their union cannot be the ultimate goal, the union of Paramatma. So alternatively, the word yoga in this verse means oneness. In that case, it should be explained as their oneness and not mere union or conjunction. The rest of the explanation will be the same as above. So even if you take that the yoga is oneness, unity, still one thing cannot become another. So just like one light being placed within the other light, the two appear to be one, The two appear to be one thing, but they are actually and there's no distinction between them. So, what is he arguing against here? Well, it was, from one point of view, if you're talking about the union of the individuals, it appears that he's talking about Brahma, the Brahma Jnana, the union of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul. So whether you take it as a bimba pratibimba, that the reflection and the original thing become merged, or whether you take it that the individual soul and the Supreme Soul are not ever completely unified. Well, this is really what Jiva wants to say. He wants to say that even in Brahma Jnana, there's no possibility of the individual soul actually becoming completely one or completely merged into or completely identified with the Brahman. That's the essence of what Jiva Goswami is getting at. He wants to show that Brahma Gyan is not the same as thought of by the Brahmagyanis, by the Kevaladvaitavadis. So even if the case, so now what would it be if you took it as is Sridhar actually arguing against bhakti? Is bhakti not that one thinks of the individual soul as being united with the Supreme Soul, and that being united with the Supreme Soul, that there he becomes the all soul, he becomes the self of all things? Well, it's a bit, here the word Paramatma is used and not Brahman. So it's a kind, and the word yoga is used. So it appears to be, I'm having difficulty trying to figure out exactly what the Purva Paksha is here. Who is he exactly talking about? What school of thought is he referring to? Is he referring to the Kevaladvaitavadis, or is he referring to some other school of Paramatma Yoga, where the individual soul is joined or united with Paramatma? So it could, if in that case, it would be a kind of a bhakti, right? That ekatra sthiti bhavanaya, the way that Jiva Goswami described it, was that that they're situated in the same place. So, like the verse in the Samana Vrikshe, that the two birds situated in the same tree, that they see that they're inseparable. They're always together. So that is, we use that verse as an indication that from the Upanishads, that the idea of an individual soul and a supreme soul, eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman, nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam, eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman. So that one supreme soul is, so by associating with that supreme soul, one becomes one with it. And in that way, one attains a kind of universality, and one transcends the limitations of individual being. Well, obviously, let's see what the Babaji comments here, and then we'll see if I have anything else to say. Another alternative for the ultimate goal of life, the Paramartha or Purushartha, is proposed. The union of the self with the Supreme Self. By such a union, the Jiva becomes like the Absolute, because such a union would make them non-different. Unlike the previously proposed and rejected Paramarthas, such a union would not be perishable, nor would it be a means rather than the end. And furthermore, it supersedes the separative quality of the goal of yoga as given in the previous verse. Nevertheless, Jara Bharat rejects such a proposal. He says that such a union would not make the jiva completely acquire the nature of the Absolute. A jiva is atomic and can only contact an atomic part of the Absolute. It cannot hold all the power of the Absolute, just as a 100-volt bulb cannot carry the 11,000 volts of the power station. So even if there is union, the Jiva remains a Jiva and can only manifest limited power. So, well, that's what it said. I suppose it's not much more complicated than that. But who is he talking about? Does he want to say is this the Brahmavad position, or is he actually talking about bhakti here, or is it a particular concept of bhakti that the individual soul becomes one? In any case, it's been rejected because this jiva cannot encompass the entire Supreme Soul. The jiva always remains distinct from the Supreme. The jiva is always minute, a fraction of the Supreme Being, and therefore we don't accept that either. But it's interesting. So even in what sounds to be like Kevala Advaita Vada, oneness of the individual jiva with the Supreme, that is in this language here is not accepted. So let's go on to a little bit of we'll just even if today is a bit shorter than the other. Let's see, where do we go here? Oh my. All right, well, I guess I'll just stop here because, we'll go on with, even though this is a shorter class, we'll just leave it there and go on with the next part in the next reading. Jai Sri Radhe.